Council, you may continue now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Justice Jaite and Honorable Omar Jabang.
Bismillah, Justice Jaite and Honorable Omar Jabang.
Justice Jaite, we had gone as far as your discussion of the interferences with Honorable Justice Mami Asinsi.
Justice Jaite and Tata la Fudin Kirado Mealonko, Honorable Justice Mami Asinsi la Kuo.
Were in retaliation with her decision that did not favor the government decided to cut her utility supplies.
Lamende Alonko, Kangola, Kangomenta, Kitio la Carola, Kuntro Menke, or Kitio Ninda Mansala, Mansakunda la Carola, Mandia, Dia Wolia, Fall Narana, allow Munafang, Mifang in Malongo, Mujun in Kurang, in Narana Kuntu Aya.
Which, as a result of the frustrations that she suffered in the workplace, she decided to resign and gracefully leave the jurisdiction.
Nunar na hakil jaka so kya sondomo kono do ko dulato amanna na hakil ten kon so reji anarna do ko nyinga natana do ko nyin sei resigned anarna banko nyimbula.
Could you proceed to give us a few other examples?
Tenten no hanika bi ka misalu dol fanan dinna banko tenke ba.
And then we would move on to the experiences of Honorable Omar Jabang.
Nimboro ron sita Honorable Omar Jabang ada fanan na karola ay kule akul mentaki.
And then we would exhibit the written report.
Ningo borala nyin kuma kan safere nyin sanana dundi ku sede andiro nyin kono kalava sede jarol kan.
Yes, because we don't really have enough time.
Kadung mawato soto.
Kindly proceed.
Sitenten no Honorable Justice.
Thank you, Lead Counsel.
Nimbara Lead Counsel.
So, with the Justice, Honorable Justice Salawada, is the Justice of the Court of Appeal.
Honorable Salawada tefanamu Justice leti na kiti bunda sain kangola karola.
And she suffered a lot at the judiciary of the Gambia.
Ndo ay batabal leta ki Gambia la kiti bundala.
In 2008, she was a High Court judge.
2008 umunna kiti bunda santonko la kiti ndir bunda leti abejele.
There was a case that came before her
kiti nata soto men nata nyati lingula
involving the state and Charles Andrew Northfield.
Andu bate wobeman sakunda ni Charles Andrew Northfield le temanu.
Mr. Charles Andrew Northfield was charged with an offense.
Charles Andrew Northfield ya tuminung kuja ukeolela.
And she granted bail to Charles to accused person Charles Andrew Northfield.
Atenata bail diwo mo tuminung la Charles Andrew Northfield la.
Where a deposit of a title deed was required as a bail bond.
Dameng isulata korda kaito lela membe kala belo dalilo sankoti.
Andrew Charles Northfield is an English national and just recently arrived in the Gambia at that time.
Otembo Charles Andrew Northfield luntangole muati abota England banko le kan ala wokobe kala tumena mamme afrata banko kan
and could not fulfill the bail condition.
Andu wo bail sarto e men kaning sanko la karola amawo timmandino.
And the superior courts went into recess, summer recess.
Ndu wotumo na kiti bunda santonkolu wo wuche okonole mu itatela dahawa tota.
And the then Chief Justice A.K. Savage
wotumo memu Chief Justice A.K. Savage
varied the bail conditions.
Anata kuolu lanya faling bail sarto nyin kenyati.
Instead of a deposit of a title deed,
uruka foko ka korda kaito ke sankoti.
Asked for a payment of a physical cash was required.
Onata kanindro ke kodo si kaning membe kela jotati.
Mr. Charles Andrew Northfield fulfilled the bail condition.
Charles Andrew Northfield anata wakango timmandi ka kodojo.
And because of that, she was terminated.
Wodrong odalilo le ya sabu ya tela doko ya fonyondi doko la.
She wrote a protest letter.
Kamfa kan letro safe.
And they came to realize that, it was the former Chief Justice A.K. Savage who granted bail.
Nataje wokola lomko memu Chief Justice tunum A.K. Savage wole bail nyindi.
Very the bail application, very the bail conditions.
Wole nata bail sartolu nyilu yelemandi ke faling.
She was reinstated.
Bito yate murundi ngala pala soto.
And the then Chief Justice A.K. Savage was fired.
Bito otumo le memu Chief Justice tunum otumo A.K. Savage yate baidu kola.
One whole Chief Justice fired for varying bail conditions.
Amunda kiditela bela nyaron ko ikafme Chief Justice ala bail sarto nyin ka faling odali lokan ya bay.
Yes.
No process for misconduct on his part.
Amunda tela karola man tumir denda ka fo ko barata ni nyala melon ko ay loi salani.
That is correct.
And
in fact, the Chief Justice is also a member of the High Court. He's a High Court judge as well.
And the Chief Justice, at a moleti member na kitibunda santonko fananto amuje kitidimuleti.
So in 2016,
2016 sankono.
Justice Salawada was at the High Court.
Justice
at the Court of Appeal.
Justice Salawada abenna kitisa inkambunda lanu.
And there was a bail application involving the case of the state and Usainu Dabo and others.
Andung kiti kaito nata soto meye bail ko kaning me yalonko tumo Usainu Dabo ni ndolu meni yalonko ba koko no adenta wolela kola.
She did not preside over the bail application.
Ate mamara wo bail kunyalo amansia kunade.
And she was fired.
Bari ya baido kola.
No apparent reason.
Amanke dalila kanti.
And after the change of government,
Birimman sakunda falinta.
She was not reinstated.
Now Murundi Palasoto.
She was reappointed.
Inatasa inkanta.
Which affected her standing on the bench.
Meyalonko ay kusoto ay menta mandi alaw ludulato kiti bunda kafola karola.
Her elevation to the Supreme Court was affected.
Amunta nyanta palasi lafa men soto na purkata o kiti bunda sandonko do ayo nasindi.
And lost her service of 25 years.
And I sanyimu ani lulo men doko nyanta bulma sayo men kelayo to afota obela.
So we have another judge, Justice Amina Sao Sise.
Nata do fanan soto Justice Amina Sao Sise.
And she is a judge of the High Court.
Atamukitindrilati na kiti bunda bato High Court.
But before that, she was either a magistrate.
Janne ubekela amu magistrate letinu.
He was at the sheriff's office as a sheriff.
Adunga tarta sheriff la office oto fanamu kiti bunda do leti atamu sheriff letinu.
And was the master of the High Court.
Anatake master tin na kiti bunda bato High Court.
So she is a seasoned judicial officer.
Andu lonna le muati mo meri ngolo mo kiti ndirdo kubunda la karola.
She had some troubles at the judiciary.
Anatakole akolu soto kiti ndirbunda la je.
And when Justice Emmanuel Fagbele was the Chief Justice.
And bring Justice Fagbele natake Chief Justice ti.
And she was at the office of the sheriff.
Ondu otumate be sheriff la office oto.
An audit exercise was carried out.
Inata kontiboro ke do ko nyinto e kontiboro ke je.
And no adverse mention. There was no adverse mention against her.
Iman tokuya fuama, iman kruya ku fuama, imafa ay ku kruneke.
However,
baro nyawnya
Justice Ajim set up a committee.
Unata committee olondi
to investigate the office of the sheriff.
Purka sheriff la office wala ko lu kisi kisi.
And that committee was headed by Justice Ota.
Odun wo committee o meya nyatonka ya ikafaine Justice Ota.
Justice Ota gave a damaging report.
Justice Ota anata kibaru kurun bondi memu tinyar kibaroti.
Accusing her
ka atumi
together with the late Haruna Jaite.
Atenintala Haruna Jaite ke
Safiatunjai.
Anin Safiatunjai.
When Nguimbub Jane.
Anin Nguimbub Jane.
Now a judge of the High Court.
Sayo mukitin reality High Court na
they were operating an Osusu.
Ko wolube Osusu le tamandi kanu.
And because of that,
wakamala
committee report,
committee onyina kibaro,
they were charged at the magistrate's court.
Inate tumi magistrate kitibundala.
And Justice Nkia was the magistrate at the time.
Adotumo Justice Nkia atelo magistrate wotumo.
So there was a bail application.
Inata bail kalim inata bail kala kumakango nati.
The offense they were charged with
Katu ye tumi kuo men na ko ye woleke.
are bailable offenses.
Wolmu kulleti nimme yoke sa bail nole tanatije.
However,
Bari wo nyawnyandi.
during the bail proceedings,
Biribe o bail kunya lu topoto kang.
Magistrate Kia, as he then was,
Magistrate nkia te magistrate le tun wotumo.
had his telephone on the bench.
Ala telefono babulu tabulo kanjabe dami.
On 2 occasions,
Sinya fula
he would rise
asi wuli
and receive the telephone call
asita telephone komandiro luta.
and come back to the bench.
Ay murunam kiti bundanya na kasije.
Eventually,
Anifo alabandulato.
he denied, Honorable Justice Amina Sao bail
Anata balang Justice Amina Saho purka o bail.
in order for a remand.
Ando ay kangodi purio sambari man kasola.
At that time,
Tembo
Justice Sao was pregnant,
Justice Saho utumo harjole bala akono bala utumo.
6 months.
Kari woro harjole bala utumo.
With her 6 months pregnancy,
Aningo kari woro kono
she was taken to remand.
ya sambari man.
And the case was transferred
Inata kito nyimfango saundi
to the High Court.
ya samba kiti bunda bato high court.
What happened to her colleagues?
Colleagues were granted bail.
Kafunyolu yolu bail yolu bula itata bail.
What was so special about her case that made her such a flight risk that she could not be granted bail like her colleagues?
Mune jareta la me asabu adonyo li bail di wala te manna bail di atala.
Yes, because the Chief Justice at the time was interfering in the work was interfering with the magistrate in Kia.
Wotumo Chief Justice Global do kolu kuna kakolu tamandi wotumo Justice nkia ba do kola jetu momena.
But we must also understand that Justice Ajim succeeded Justice Nkia, Justice A.K. Savage.
Bari nyanda nyulo na ko ate Justice Ajima atele saita Justice A.K. Savage la palaso.
So at that time,
Bitu wotembo
this Honorable Justice Amina Sao,
Justice Honorable Amina Saho
had some issues with some other judicial officers
anen kudolu sotontale ani o kiti bunda do kulalu dolu tema
who were interfering with her work.
men ya lon ko eke dabula ni bulobula ala do koto.
And I could remember one of them is Pahari Jamme.
Makilo baka mo kilimbe kono e ka fo meye num Pahari Jamme.
So Pahari was a magistrate at Brikama.
Pahari mu magistrate le tunum Brikama.
And a complaint was lodged at her office.
Inata kalamiro landi ala office oto.
And at her office, and it's the matter, there was complaint that Pahari was interfering with the execution.
Ando inata foko ado ko nyen tamandi nya Pahari ka dabula jele.
So Pahari was summoned to appear before Justice Savage.
Pahari kumandi pray finti Justice Savage nyatilingola.
And he refused
Abalanta.
on the grounds that he has an axe to grind with Justice Sao.
Ate kule soto anyanta men tamandila nin Justice Saho tema.
He did not appear at that meeting.
Amanson na tala obengoto.
He wrote a letter.
And A.K. Savage was the Chief Justice at the time.
Yes.
A.K. Savage atela munu kititela bela nyarongo de waro.
A magistrate refused to go and answer to the summons of the Chief Justice.
Magistrate o memu kititela dumalanko de abalanta kateda ngu kititela bela santongo la banko kan.
Yes.
That's not normal, is it?
That's correct.
Amanyang.
So because of that, then all of a sudden she was elevated to become the master.
Bitu wakamala wati sunkono inata palasi lafadi ala kake mastati.
I think Pahari was promoted, to become the sheriff.
Bitu Pahari inata wala palaso lafa kake sheriffti.
So more confusion started within them.
Bitu amunta nyami nyolo sembo wartabake watembo itema.
A lot of bad blood.
Amunta kamfa nyolo sembo fana warata.
So as a result of that, Justice Savage,
Bitu wakamala Justice Savage,
Justice Amina Sao Sise,
Justice Amina Sao Sise,
the late Haruna Jaite,
Anintala Haruna Jaite,
because he wrote the letter summoning him on behalf of the Chief Justice.
Katu atele electoral safe purka kumandi kana lo Chief Justice nyatilimula.
We are all wrongfully terminated.
Yebe baydo kuala menin tilimu fongo mantanyola.
And Justice Ajim was also elevated.
Ye Justice Ajim fanan na palaso lafa wo tembole.
So Ajim was interfering with Justice Nkia's decision.
Justice Ajim akadabula Justice Nkia la kangolu to abemenu tamandika.
And instructed him not to grant bail to Justice Amina Sao.
Atele nata nyin kango di wala pruo kana bail akana song ye Justice Amina Sao bail.
The matter was transferred to the High Court.
Inata ko nyin sawndika samba na High Court kitibunda santon koto.
From the Magistrates Court.
Kabo Magistrate kitibundala.
And the Director of Public Prosecution.
Memu nyaton koti kito nin kito samba nya Carola Kafole Director of Public Prosecution wala
Mr. Chengi.
DPP kafome Mr. Chenge.
This Mr. Chengi could not proceed with the case.
Mr. Chenge anin kito ama sambano.
Because there was no evidence.
Katu sede kuteje.
And because there was no evidence, he couldn't proceed with the case.
Katu sede tije atesila menkang wala na mankito nyin sambano.
And he was assisted by one neighbor Jones.
Adum sotonda memfana ya mako kafome neighbor Jones.
And and we are trying to have the matter withdrawn because there was no evidence.
Iba kataka numfang purka kito nyimfang mume obe bondi kiti bundala katu sede tije.
Because of that,
wakamala
the DPP DPP Chenge
memu kitindirla kulu nyaton koti
was declared persona non grata.
Inata nyin kango foko mansula la banko fango mume o kang.
To leave the country 48 hours.
Ye munta tilifula le dia la pura fere ke ay Gambia banko bula.
The DPP left the country.
Kutumole modalilo le yasabu DPP e banko bula o nyalema.
Then other Nigerian prosecutors were recruited, locally on local contract.
Inata Nigerian kadolu ta menu mukitindila altimenu banko kanja inata uluta contract kola.
They could also not proceed with the case.
Wolfanalu man kito nyin sambano.
Because there was no evidence.
Katu sede tije fereng itelisil tukumena.
The allegation against Justice Sao and others
for Justice Sao
is because that they stole money from the office of the sheriff. And that he used that money to build a house. So the former president Yaya Jammeh, considering that the case could not proceed, instructed the former director of National Drug Law Drug Law Enforcement Agency
DLEA
called Ben Jammeh investigate the matter. Ben investigated the matter and realized that the house that Justice Sao, their resident, their proper house,
Justice Sao
they took loan from the bank. Those evidence were presented to Mr. Ben Jammeh. Together with receipts of their source of money. So Ben Jammeh presented that report to the president, the former president. Former president now realized that there was no case against them. Because of the overwhelming evidence. And the allegation was false. And that coincided in the month of Ramadan. He granted them presidential pardon in the spirit of Ramadan. The case was withdrawn. That's her story there. Yes.
And then Magistrate Omar Jabang.
Magistrate Omar Jabang.
Your worship. You also had a bit of a rough patch with the government. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. Thank you very much, Lead Counsel.
Lead Counsel.
I was first appointed as first-class magistrate on the 3rd of February 2014.
First-class magistrate February 2014.
And I did my induction training at the Bundum Magistrates Court. And it was in this court that I had my first case with an executive interest.
Utumo ngana kiti follow nyinta kiti le meya lonko banko nyatonko hamona nyabe ukito kang.
And this was the case of IGP versus Momodu Jammeh and 2 others.
Nyimu kiti leti walem IGP anim Momodu Jammeh nin dol lebe nyola.
The first accused Momodu Jammeh,
the men follow to me Momodu Jammeh,
was alleged to have sold a piece of land belonging to the mother of the former president Yaya Jammeh.
Ikaya banku kenole wafi me ya lonko Yaya Jammeh bama wale tamu banku kenoti.
To one Ibrahima Jaite.
Ikafa Ibrahima Jaite.
And when the case was mentioned,
at
around 3 p.m., I decided to grant them bail because the offenses charged were all bailable. Immediately after granting them bail, they were rearrested. Momodu Jammeh was immediately rearrested. When they returned, when we resumed proceedings on the adjourned date, the excuse they normally will give is he was rearrested on a different offense.
The
next case that I had was the Alaji So's case. He was a former ombudsman. He was arraigned on the offenses of false claim by officials, theft, disobedience of statutory duty, and neglecting official duties. The prosecution in that case were absent repeatedly. And before I assumed that case, there was an order placed in the record that if the prosecution is absent on the next adjourned date, a position would be taken. So when the case was called on the return date, the state was absent. And considering the fact that they were the ones who charged the accused person and brought him before the court, and choose to stay in their office, I decided to strike out the matter and acquitted and discharged Alaji So. I remember saying that you cannot put an accused person in the dock and go and sleep. I think it was 2 months thereafter that the said accused person died. I also remember a young frustrated prosecutor who was handling the case at the time. Who just graduated from the Gambia Law School. Approached me in my office because he was worried as to what he is going to find at the AG chambers. But that has not changed my position. And later on, I was transferred to Banjul Magistrates Court, where I also had.
Was there any connection between your transfer and your decision in the Alaji So case?
Oh yeah, itala miralo chakinyoro be itala saundiro ke bundi bundung aning kaisa majana
after the
bang bundung kaisa Banjul bang.
No, after the Alaji So's case, I went to Gambia Law School. So it was when I resumed duties after law school
Bitun brim muruta nan do ko la bringa luwa karam brin botana luwa karam muruta do ko la nang.
That I was transferred to the Banjul Magistrate Court.
Wotumole yen sounding kata Banjul Magistrate kiti bundala.
After being posted to Brikama and Farafenye.
And wayatara yem samba num Brikama and in Farafenye.
It was in Banjul that I had opportunity to preside over a case involving a false information charge.
Banjulu kiti bunda la nata silo soto kasi kiti kuna dame ya lonko kuma soto balifo ya mari tumi wolela.
Involving one white lady, Patricia.
Me ya lonko tubabu musole moti kafayam Patricia.
Who was charged with giving false information to former President Jammeh.
Ya tumi nyana kai kuma soto balole fo President ngenu ya Jammeh.
At the close of the case,
Kito bandulato,
I acquitted and discharged her.
Ngabula ko lua mamuta.
Thereafter,
Kola,
I was seized of the case of Yusuf Saidi.
Nata utumo Yusuf Saidi la ko fanan kito ta.
And this was the case that landed me in trouble.
Nino mu kito time yendundi kola yakono.
I decided to give you a synopsis of these cases.
Niaje ngani kito lu fana lula kulu Kenya banke.
Because when I was arrested and detained at the Serious Crime Unit,
the
prosecuting officer in the Yusuf Saidi case visited me. And he said the information they got from former President Jammeh was that I was a very controversial magistrate.
Akoitelie kibaro men soto yaya Jammeh fangobulu kole muntemu kitindirilati me ya lonko I
think this was as a result of the previous
series of cases.
Exactly.
So
Yusufa was charged with conspiracy to commit a felony. And obtaining money by false pretense. And so surprisingly, the co-conspirators of Yusufa were not even mentioned during the testimonies of the witnesses. And the person that they allege Yusufa to have defrauded was never called as a witness. No witness has given account as to the issue of defrauding. And at the end of the day, this defense team filed for no case to answer. I upheld their application, acquitted and discharged Yusuf Saidi. This was done on the 28th of April 2016. And it falls on a Thursday. During that period, Friday was not a working day. And Saturday, Sunday happens to be May Day.
Sunday wala benta do kulala lungu juro fe ka fo me May.
And Monday was declared a public holiday.
Adun tene lungu mu dahalungol ti do ku manyankela.
And on the 3rd of May 2016,
me karoti sabo 2016.
The story of Yusuf's acquittal was carried by the Daily Observer newspaper.
Yusufala ila bulo kito la karola ka fo ya bulale Daily Observer ya kibaro fintindi.
And at around 2:30,
two
plainclothes officers came to my office. In the persons of one Mr. Mendy and Sanya. They said I was needed at the Serious Crime Unit. And I told them I will be coming. But they insisted that they cannot leave me behind because it was an executive directive. I decided to follow them. But the incident was so shocking that when I was even leaving my office, my orderly told me he was sitting outside with the registrar of the court. But I didn't even notice their presence around. And they led me to the serious crime. And they didn't tell me anything. But the OC at the time at the serious crime unit, Ablai Toure, was a former university mate. He was the one who gave me a hint that it was as a result of the Yusuf Assedi's acquittal that I was arrested. But before close of business that day, I was visited by the current Interior Minister, Yankuba Sonko. He was my classmate at the Gambian Law School. He said he heard of my arrest, and that as a former classmate, he deemed it fit to come and see me. And I asked if I could be granted bail, and he said he has no idea. All he did was to ask his officers if there was a mattress around that I can sleep on. There was this.
What was his position at the time?
He was the IGP then.
Who arrested you?
Serious crime unit.
Serious crime unit. Police
under the IGP. And he, the IGP, didn't know whether you could be granted bail.
Exactly.
What did that tell you?
I knew maybe it's something that is above him.
And it being above him as the IGP, where else could it have been?
Considering the statement being proffered to me in the office by the two plainclothes officers that it is an executive directive, then it must have come from the office of the president.
It must have come from the president.
President, yes.
Are you really aware at the time that the president had a personal interest in that case?
I was an innocent judicial officer. I had no idea whatsoever that he has an interest in the matter.
And this was a case?
And even whereas I knew he had an interest, I was going to do the right thing. Because even after my arrest and subsequent reinstatement, it did not count me down. I could remember acquitting and discharging a soldier and a civilian who were chased around Kembujeng in a drug-related offense, even involving shooting. There was an interest. Acquitted and discharged them. Even ordered for the vehicle to be returned to the owner. Yes.
Let's go back to the Yusuf Assedi case and see how that terminated in the end.
So yes, I was given a very small, very thin single mattress that I spread on and slept on it at the serious crime.
Serious crime la bundala je.
This was an office that is so highly infested with mosquitoes.
Nyimu office leti dame ya lonko susula la korda babe lorinjele.
And I think
andu ngamira fanang
I'll have to give credit to friends and colleagues.
No nyanta terolu nindo kunyolu fanalu jaila.
Especially Yakumba Jete, the current nominated member.
Sako Yakumba Jete me ya lonko atemumo tombo ndinguleti mbenyin tembo mendo.
She visited me that night.
Atatan kumba bo wolung suto fong.
And before she left,
adunjanabe bolaje.
She told me that she has information that junglers normally pick up detainees at night.
Ay nyim fonyen ko junglers ikana molu mukama suto bale.
And she said, before I leave,
foko janabe bolaje.
You will have to stand at their office.
And
I will take a picture of you.
So
that if I return tomorrow in the morning, and you are nowhere to be found, I will expose this picture so that this was your last place of detention. She's a woman who has always been standing by me.
And
I'll have to give credit to her. I was also visited by lawyers the next day and magistrate colleagues, some of whom were weeping seriously because that was all what you could do. The likes of Sidi Jobate. And I took my phone and place a call to the then master of the High Court.
Name?
Bubajao. And he never picked up my call. I placed another call to the then Judicial Secretary.
He also
didn't pick my call. Surprisingly, in the morning on the 4th of May 2015,
2016 somanda,
all they could send was a dismissal letter.
Do
you have a copy?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, typically there are one paragraph or two-line letters. This one says, dated 3rd May 2016, Omar Jabang Esquire, Magistrate Class 1, Banjul Magistrates Court, re-dismissal. I am directed to inform you that the Judicial Service Commission has decided to dismiss you from the magistracy of the judiciary of the Gambia with immediate effect. Accordingly, your service as a magistrate is no longer required. Well, they have said the same thing twice, and that was it.
Amunta utumo ni benyinkela eka kumakan sutunu le safe do ngabukatambi bori ndifulala eka kumakan lumenu safe andu ya men safe nyin letro to wala nyin tiko magistrate jabang kulu lanya kamala kabosayinna imansula itela do kola munta yete fonyondi do kola le magistrate kiti bunda nyinna odalilo le asabu ye fonyondi le kabobila magistrate do ko nyinna karola.
And you were therefore requested to hand over all judicial properties under your custody to the judicial secretary.
Woto ye nyim kuma kango fanan la faje ko woto fengolu menu bebe bulume ya lonko kiti bunda la fengol le isi futandi judicial secretary makebe murundi akan.
Signed by the judicial secretary.
Me ya sign wolem judicial secretary ti wolem kiti bunda nyin na klakba.
And then
and so unfortunately for them, and to add it up, embarrassing, an executive directive came that evening, revoking my dismissal and reinstating me.
Could you
I was not served with that directive It was the then Deputy Inspector General of Police who came with the directive. He gave me, I read it. And then I was released.
Deputy Director of Police
So the next day also, the judiciary has to write to me, rescinding their dismissal. And in this rescission of dismissal letter, they congratulated me and reinstated me.
Mr. Chair, one paragraph later or one sentence later, I am directed to inform you that the Judicial Service Commission has rescinded your dismissal from the judiciary and reinstated your services with immediate effect. Congratulations.
Mr. Jabang between saying ila bayro menga fununga baile saying wo bayro kama nge murundile ila palaso me yalon ko bejele nun adun meyo kangolondi wala keta judicial service do ko bunda nyenti adun meya saying wala mi laklak bati.
And my wife now, when the police were coming with that executive directive,
and police executive directive,
one of the officers was like, put on your shoes and your clothes. So she thought they were taking me to another detention facility. She broke down.
And
that was really, 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 so I can say it now funny. But then it was really sad. After acquitted and discharged in Yusufa,
bring our Yusufa Bula.
There was money of 16 million CFA and $250,000, I think. That was exhibited in court. The person through whom it was tendered said he doesn't know the reason why those monies were paid. But what was certain was that it came from Yusufa. Since he was acquitted and discharged, there is nothing whatsoever against him. So the right thing to do was to order for the monies to be returned to him, which I did. I think all of that did not go down well with them. And I have a copy of the said ruling.
Send it over, thank you. And with all this, did it have any impact on how you felt, really, about continuing to be a magistrate under that environment?
Yes, it had an impact. One thing I will tell you, within that period, if you try to open my office door, trauma comes in. Because what comes to mind is maybe they are the ones coming again to pick me up. And considering that elections were nearing, and you don't know which political opponent will be brought before you, I was like, let me try and leave the jurisdiction. So a family friend, Lamin Tarawale in Georgia, sent me an invitation. I applied for an American visa. I was approved. And I decided to leave. So it was only when we had a regime change that I decided to come back. You will think that some of these magistrates will even sympathize with you when incidents like this happen. But there was a colleague of mine who made an insensitive statement that still live in me. He said, we small magistrates think we know everything. And that I should have ordered Yusuf to open his defense. He said this in the presence of my present wife. And I must confess that really it got to me. I could have been a victim of disappearance. I could have been a victim of murder. So if you could not empathize with me, the least you could do is to utter statements that can really hurt. And after all this, the Chief Justice also sent for me. But I refused to honor his invitation. And he has to drive down to my office in Banjul. And he said it was very uneasy with them. And there was little or nothing that they can do. I could remember him telling me that I will better appreciate it if at all I was the one sitting in that office. So basically that was it.
Well, we take it that things have changed fundamentally. Silence does not mean consent. Justice Jaite.
Yes. In our concluding report, the current situation under the able leadership of the present Chief Justice Honorable Hassan B. Jallow. The judicial officers appreciate and applaud his efforts in steering the wheel of justice delivery system in the right direction. Affording judicial officers the freedom to judiciously apply their interpretation of the law as judges, magistrates, and cadis. Before each case before them, free from fear of retribution. It is now a judicial policy that foreign judges serving on the bench are recruited under technical assistance from partner countries. No foreigner is now recruited on the local contract. Serve as a judicial officer at the judiciary of the Gambia.
By this, are you telegraphing that there are no more mercenary judges?
Yes. That is correct. Also commendable is the stand taken so far by His Excellency President Adama Barrow,
His Excellency President Adama Barrow,
who has pledged his firm commitment not to interfere in the judicial administration of the country. The duty of judges is considered pious. Therefore, the Constitution has provided for the independence of the judiciary. So that judges can remain impartial and to act reasonably free of any fear or favor. Ill will or affection. More importantly, there should be no political interference of any kind in the dispensation of justice.
On that note, Mr. Chair, I say thank you to Justice Jaite and His Worship Omar Jabang for faithfully representing the views of the judiciary.
Honorable Justice Jaite and Honorable Omar Jabang Bafolenko Al Nimbara Al Natalo na kitindir bunda toya la purka nyimbankero ke jambi.
For faithfully representing the position of the judiciary. And for sharing with us a chronicle of the incidences or abuses experienced by members of the judiciary during the 22 years of Jammeh.
Tilimbali al nin tajire yalu menu keta wato me alonko sanji muang anim fula sembela maralo bekeri nyimbanko kan lua bundala do konyi ye bulu menu kije ani ye tajire yalu nin tilimbali yalu menu kije pour kawlu banke.
And thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I hand over to you. Yes, but I have 4 documents that I would wish to exhibit.
Yes, thank you very much, Council. I'll come back to you on the exhibits. Thank you very much indeed, Justice Jaite and Honorable Jabang for your testimony.
Honorable Justice Jaite and Honorable Justice Jabang.
It's commendable of you really to come and set the context in which for 22 years justice was supposedly delivered in this country.
And for
the testimonies we heard from you today reveal utter chaos in the judiciary. Caused by interference from the executive branch of the government. It would seem that it was an era of excessive and incessant interference by the executive. You had mercenary judges, as Council just referred to, who were deployed in the judiciary. The I have only a very simple question to ask both of you. Under this circumstance, and in your view, do you think that justice was dispensed properly here in the Gambia during the 22 years? If the answer is in the negative, How do we remedy that?
I
want to hear your views. You were in the front line. Please come go on. Yeah. Justice yes.
Justice Jete,
Thank you, Chairman, for the question. Justice is difficult to define. What is even justice?
Justice, wolem katilingo tamande abe koleala le purka firing.
What may be just to you
Kodo sikete fe tilinguti
may not be just to another person.
Sikeno donya koto tilimbaliati.
That's why we have rules, laws.
Dalilo le asabu ngalualu soto sartolu.
Yes. So during the past 22 years,
sanji muani mfulo wicheo kono.
There were courageous judges who dispensed justice without fear or favor, affection or ill will. And they paid a price for that. There were also judicial officers who, for one reason or the other, out of fear or favor or ill will, not dispense justice. The way forward is to have the laws amended and repeal those draconian the sections in our constitution. Particularly section 141 subsection 2C.
Bunda keme bunda tanani ning kilinjangoti ala bunda fulanjango sapa sabanjango.
And also the judiciary is the bastion of hope. It's the last line.
Kiti bunda lemu lodula labangoti banku dimuli ila jiko danta jele mu ila jiko bunga ba fango lodulati.
We must make sure we have the right men and women
nyanta katalele wala nyabe sio nyama menu mutonya dum kewluti musuninke
who have the courage
menni ya ajuso soto
without fear in their hearts
man silan soto isondomolu kono
will do justice according to law.
Menu si tilimunin tonya tamandi ko luwa ya kani nyamen.
If we have judicial officers
ninga luwa bunda doku la soto
who are not courageous
menu ma ajusu bengo soto
and they could be used
and
circumvent the law and dispense justice.
So
we must vet our judges and magistrates.
Woto na kitindirla lu jojol ni magistrato lu be nyante la kojube la ka sahayandi ni be tala do ko la
before assuming office
ya ni be office do ko fongo damutala
as to whether they are fit and proper
fodun ka long nyildum nyim makamo wala nyim palaso e sita tamale wala isa tamandino le bang
whether come here or what they will do what is right.
Anta jubela munabina bang munku kolene belale kambang munku lebe kelabang itelte dodo jubela baribe bulala tilingu nintonya silole noma
because as judicial officers
kadu ni bedo ko la luwa nin tilingu do ko bundala
is not well enumerated.
Bundalo me alon kala ala safero ninkuma amang ake kuti mense siaibe men tamandila
compared to our counterparts in other countries.
Men nin kafunyo dolu la do ko lanya fatata menu be banku dolu kan
compared to our colleagues who are in private practice.
Men nin na do ku nyolu fanalu la do ku nya fatata menu be do ko ke kan ifaye.
As a judicial officer,
ni be do ko la loi bundala
you cannot fraternize with the public.
inin jama molu te denyo ma ya kulu tamandila.
You cannot run a business.
Ite jula ya kenola.
You cannot do many things in order to augment your income.
Ite kuja mala bija ite menu kenola purka kafundankela soto buloma.
In fact, I believe you cannot be very rich.
Andun lata la kufanga ite kenola fankamati.
Otherwise, there will be doubt as the source of your
ni wonte molu be hakilu fula soto la ila soto ya bondi min.
So we must have men and women who are not greedy.
Woto nyanta molle soto na musuke men ya lonko I manke wasabalo luti.
Who can tamper justice with mercy.
Men ya lonko isi tilingu nyenni ba tamandila isi anim balafa sambanyola.
So with that as a collective responsibility,
no mukuleti me ya lonko mbela lonkunto duno le muoti.
Getting the right people in that position. Even if we have, a dictator, it will be difficult for them to operate. Because they will do what is just. Proper under the circumstances. So it's a big task. Everyone must be involved. Throughout the world, we don't have a lot of judicial officers. If you go to the United States,
America,
there are very few judges.
So
judges are always smaller in number. They are very few. So we have to be careful when we are selecting or appointing our judges. Particularly the Chief Justice.
Chief Justice.
We have seen where Chief Justice in our testimony here, Chief Justice interfering.
Chief Justice
Now it is not happening. The people who were pressurizing those Chief Justices are still around, they could use the same.
Chief Justice
But because the type of Chief Justice we have,
Chief Justice they
cannot face him now, and they're trying to make all those unnecessary reports and other things. So he will tell them to do the right thing. So if we are lucky to have the right people in the right place, I think the country will be moving forward.
wo palaso dun kewol le muyti woto mbe jikirin ko bankobe Cairo soto la ngatanya.
Thank you very much, indeed. I was quite encouraged and happy to hear that the steps that are being taken under the leadership of current Chief Justice Hassan Jallow. So that's quite encouraging. Mr. Javang, Honorable Javang, you have something to add?
Yes, just to add on.
In
as much as we are concerned with the removal of judges under the Constitution, I think we also need to avert our minds the manner in which Chief Justices are appointed. Because we've had testimonies from witnesses here in relation to the way and manner former Chief Justices use their office to allow the judiciary to be used as a vehicle to perpetrate injustice and entrench dictatorship in the Gambia. This is because Section 138 of the 1997 Constitution provides that the Chief Justice shall be appointed by the President after consultation with the Judicial Service Commission.
President wala nyanta Chief Justice tombona bari wo batar lale atani Judicial Service Commission wolem alfa kafoti menu be loring kito nin kitikolu kuna banko kanani wolu dia muta kola asitombondiro keno.
And as I said earlier, under the general construction of powers,
under
the Constitution,
bankola constitution okono
section 231 sub 4 to be precise,
bunda kemefula bunda tansabani kilinjango ala sapanani njango purka aseneyandi.
if a person or if you are allowed by the Constitution to consult,
ning bankola sarto ye sembo di la pur inin doli nyoje kasi kukuna ka diamu.
If you consult,
you
are not bound by the decision of the authority or the individual you are consulting.
Woto ni wolu menu kachata wanya wala mo kunkilina la kamo manya na tarla lari te kampuri tamaola.
So if the head of state wants to appoint another mercenary individual to be Chief Justice in the Gambia,
nimansa lafita modo tombon na mensike luntan kitindir lati menka do koke kodoye alafta tombon na kake wo palaso to Gambia jang.
You just need to consult the Judicial Service Commission.
Anyanta o alfa kafo jelale kafo me Judicial Service Commission wolem alifaluti menu be maralin kiti ko la banko kan.
And if they advise him against such an appointment,
ya maro dia la pura kana o mo fasongo tombong,
he will not be bound by that advice.
So he
can just go ahead and appoint anybody he so wishes to be in that office. And the office of the Chief Justice is very paramount. Because it is the conduit through which all cases coming to the superior courts pass through. He assigned all the cases at the superior courts to the especially at the high court to the judges. So he can elect to give a case to a judge that he thinks can do the bidding for him on behalf of the executive if we don't have those constitutional safeguards.
Ning bankolas constitutional law tankandir bunda lutiloring woto atabe kito lutala le kedi molu la meni alonko ate dianye ko wo kitindir la lubeta mala wala.
I think if we are to ask the TRRC to recommend for section 141 2C to be repealed or deleted from the Constitution,
woto nimbenyi yamaro dila TRRC la ko bunda keme bunda tanani nin kilinjango ala fana sabanjango la sapanani njango pour yo da bondi na Constitution okono ka burukaje ni umbeo yamaro dila TRRC la.
I think section 138 of the Constitution should also be critically taken into consideration.
Woto ngamera bunda keme bunda tansabani njango fanang juberi nyanta kela ala kuolale.
So that we will have a Chief Justice
Chief Justice soto banko kang
will be shielded
me ya lonko asitanko soto
from executive interference.
Satara banko nyatonko tabula la kula sitama
and his tenure in office guaranteed.
Andong ala taro ofiso kono kala du kotama satara wo sanko beloring.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, if you have any questions, please indicate.
Commissioner ninga tra momo nyini karosoro isa itandi.
Sorry, did you ask? Yeah. Commissioner Kinte. You didn't write.
Commissioner Kinte left a said
Thank you very much, Justice Jaite.
Kay numbarabaka Justice Jaite.
Honorable Java.
Honorable Java.
The chairman's question almost preempted me. Nonetheless, there is a point that I need emphasis. The governance is on 3 pegs. The executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. Well, fine, apart from repealing and amending various parts of the Constitution, you people are the experts. See how best you inject in a way that 2 sides of the 2 pegs of the 3 are always in agreement to what happens to the third part.
Ning Manasakunda la sinkiri bere sabol nyim fula besonna kula me alonko sabanjang besonna la.
For example,
Misal fe.
If the president was going to be allowed the mandate to terminate or appoint whatever,
Ninga president wonyin manda nyinga silo di la puruka ka mobondi ala do ko waranto nya membe ko nya osifa.
no matter the circumstances,
Ko la nya nyarande nyama.
both the legislature and the judiciary
Na député bumba anin na kiti bundal nyim fulol be.
most popularly
Ibe nyanda kala bundal de me alonko
agree or disagree for any decision.
Ibe sonnale waranto e balang kango dolda.
This will create a balance that, like, if the president wants to appoint and
balance lon la misal fe ninga tra president wala tombondiro kala
is asked to consult with the Judicial Commission,
ka to loi men faaje wala nyinde ko ninga be tombondiro kala nin Judicial Service Commission nyanna wol puson son folo
there should be a procedure
silo nyanna tarla jele
that will ensure
men ba jela ko
those consulted have some power over the decisions.
men yalon ko nyanne kuson son wala fane sembo soto ko la mi yalon ko nyanda kango kuntula wala
Notwithstanding,
but han ka bi o nyaaw nyanyara
the legislature should also have some power
ninga tra na député bundala fana nyanna sembo do soto la
to add on to the decision
kala faro ko kango nyina men la lafta kango mentala
or go away so that there is balance.
waranto e boje isaje nyin kamala ko balance wo nyin asitembe no.
Even where, for example, we say you go to the legislature, they debate, they scrutinize, whatever, for the removal of a high court judge.
Fo nyaaw nyara misal fi ka ko ni be mo tombonda misal fi high court kiti bunda ba santon ko ni ba tombonda ya samba député bungo ka jube kala kuson son ka jube.
The presentation, on the other hand,
itandiro nyin fannado la
should not have come from the judiciary in isolation or the executive in isolation, but together to the
amanya nabola na kiti bunda la ida maldo waranda ibuna député bunda la fannala
that will make sure that it has weight that cannot be manipulated.
Anyana kela pesar la ne me alon ko ade falindire tarano la.
That's not the only area. There are a number of areas.
Mo manke fanna kilingo rendi fanna dol fanam bejele.
For example,
misal
if I want to make sure the legislature dance to my tune,
ni lafta jela ko na député bundanko yedo na julola.
Thank God we are recovering from it, but it was provided that I will expel the guy from my party.
Ala tendumbe findi kan maranya sifaro
That will deny the person the status.
Isaje o mare nyinga be balamba be kela mari nyina ko
That's a control mechanism. So the number of those types you have that you can control enhances political manipulation of all the other decisions.
Wato do beje political la falninya ka soto kan dol bela mi alan ko nyanda ka woleta.
But if we look at areas that there will be checks, whatever the executive has to do, the two have to popularly support it or against it, goes a long way, and vice versa.
Wato do ninga jibe ko executive wala ya jamme president na la bala mo ni le dafta ko ku ke ni bunda ko tan dol nyanna ko ni jibe la ka jibe ka pesa fo.
I thank you once more very much.
Ni tendu ba ke fana ngi jaay ba ke Allah diamodo.
Thank you. Bishop, you have the floor.
Commissioner Audiko. Wala lafta sedo ni ninkala.
Thank you, Chairman.
Akay numbara ba Chairman.
Justice Ibrahim Jaite and Honorable Omar Jaban, thank you so much for your presentation.
Justice Ibrahim Ba Jaite and Honorable Omar Jaban, Allah Baltendula Bagangal Jay, Allah Sedandro Mendia.
You have mentioned many times
that
the judiciary is the last hope of the citizenry. Which implies that judges, magistrate and judges ought to be men and women of integrity, discipline, and be impartial. Now, we do pray that as we have a reform judiciary,
ko tumala men nga falindro da nga damuto ke falindro la Kenya la kiti bundaro
these qualities
nying doku tilindi wala ni doku timmarengol
will be evident
abe mukula de melon ka be kala sedandire sene yarengolti
in our judicial system in this nation.
na kiti bundaro nyimbanku kanjang
That magistrate and judges
kiti tela dumalankol ni santolankolu
will be independent,
ibe kala mole ibe tara lori faye
impartial,
ibe tara la mokang
free from political interference,
ibe kana la politiko la dabulo politiciano la karola
economic
fankola karola
influence,
fankola karola pour moyena ka fanko tili na fulo tili la pour que la hakilo nyim faling
and religious influence as well.
anin dino la karola fanan pour moyene sondo mo falen dino la karola.
We wish the judiciary of this nation well.
nyim banko la kiti bunda nying ba fole ko be tendula be jayla
And the two acts, the 141 and the 138, will be the TRRC will put their own, appropriate recommendation. Thank you so much.
ale bundal men for 141 and 138 ale o bundal men for TRRC fanam be la recommendation o kala ko nyinto la ka jube ko me alon ko be tar la kende ari ngabe bete ala banko e fanam be oto jube la.
Thank you very much, Justice Jaite and Honorable Javang. If you have any concluding remarks to make, please proceed to make them now.
Numbara bake Justice Jaite and Honorable Omar Jabang silang ning arale kuma sura bela la kala kuma da sura menna alsat assistant.
Justice Jaite.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Nimbara chairman and commissioner
And lead counsel.
and lead counsel
And the interpreter.
and kanasur lalu.
Well, I don't have much to say,
Kuma jama tembulumbe memfola.
but I believe that, we as judicial officers,
Barillata la kontelmen be dukula kiti bundala.
we must uphold our judicial oath of office.
Nyantale nka kalio menta na ofiso duko samboto nga o kalio londi nga bambandi nga o kalimo bambandi.
That we will do justice
Kombe tilingu ni ntonyale
to all
tamandila.
manner of people
Mo fasongo beye
without fear or favor,
ndo atekela silankanti atekela fasari kanti.
affection or ill will.
Atekela kanunte yati atekela konnante yati.
We should not be subjected to any control by any person
Andu manyan natarla mo womondi mbulo kono mensin telu la nyaaw nyandi nyama diata ate nyamin
or authority.
wala nyaton kabulu.
We should be subjected to the Constitution,
Nyanta tilin na ngatama constitutional la
laws of
kamola.
the Gambia,
Ba Gambia banko la lualu.
and other rules and practice directions.
Anin sarta kotengol lin tarambulo lu men yalon ko keta tilingu lin tonya siloluti meno be banko kan.
We must be incorruptible.
Nyanta kala molleti men yalon ko ente tolino la tolote dun nanon toluto.
We must be honest,
Nyanta tilin nale.
and we must dispense justice
Andu nyanta tilingu nin tonyale londi la ka sabatindi.
expeditiously.
Andu asike nyati me yalon ko mba nin tilingu anin tariya sambala nyola ko ya kanin nyamin.
Justice delay
Nin tilingu men tardeta dukundita.
is justice denied.
Awoto yo mari bali tonyala.
And also the economy of the Gambia,
Gambia fanam banko la fanko.
the business climate
Na julaya safaro bunda.
depends on the dispensation of justice timeously.
Wo fanan ala kujama be dendin tilingu nin tonya tamando le kan jama.
If cases drags in court for many years,
Nin kitolu nata tu dendin kiti bunda la betala amam banno ibuka banno fo sanji jama kiti kilingu be kering.
prisoners are in remand,
Kasolankolu be riman.
judgments are not delivered timeously,
Kitolu manna tama hanfo ye kitolu te awatola.
it could lead to injustice.
Obina kela tilimbali aletide.
So we as judicial officers,
Woton telumembe do ko la tilinin kito bundala.
we must work very hard
Nyanta katala lengan wakili nga do ko ke anyama.
to make sure that we deliver judgments on time.
Puruka ke ka nyin kamala nga kitolu tamandi anyama nga kitolu kuntu awatola.
Aggrieved parties
Bundalu menu be kamfari.
could appeal against the decision.
Isi sain kan diro ke isi kito sain kan wulindi no le ningi man sewo kito teta nyami.
So I believe that's what I could say for the time being, and much has been said here.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much indeed. You have the floor.
Mr. Jaite saying Mr. Jabang.
Mr. Jabang, you have the floor, sir.
Silang ifanana bunda felelering.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Chairman.
I would just want to align myself to the concluding remarks made by Honorable Justice Jaite.
Mela fila kan na kumolu kan fan tembendi kumakangolu fe Justice Jaite menu fojang saying.
But just to add that,
pour barimbenyin la fala je ko.
As judicial officers, we
need
to exert our independence.
And
know that we are here for everybody. And what you do, you will live to be accounted for it tomorrow. Justice knows no one. That is why, as judicial officers, we have this symbol of a lady who has a rope tied on his eyes with a sword in the hand. It means you know no one who is before you.
Walet munyin taman seroti ko ite mamolong momondi be nyatilunga ima long ite tonyale long.
You were there to do right.
Ite bije nyina kama purka tonya taman.
And may Allah endow us
andu ngoto alama ala yende ma wasilo kang
the wisdom
aya londo sono yandinye
and the faith to do
aninga ya nganiyo dinna fanang purkake
that which is right.
Me ya long ko wolem tilingunin tonya.
Thank you very much.
Allah baraka.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Justice Ibrahim Jaite.
Lumbara Justice Ibrahim Jaite.
Honorable Omar Jabang.
And Honorable Omar Jabang Al Nimbara.
You've spent a whole day with us to try to educate us on the context, as I said earlier, in which you operated for 22 years.
Aliakata purkanso londola kankala mutandi kakulu bonye nyoto atele du ko tamandi o sanjimu nim fulo wuche kono menketa wucheti mendeteta nyimbanko kan.
Thank you for your testimony and also for your concluding remarks.
Al nimbara alla sedeyaro kan al nimbara alla kumo kacha kumfadula fanan kan.
Well, Council, you have the floor to submit your exhibit numbers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The statement of the judiciary should be exhibit 223. Should the chair accept it?
Yes.
223.
Yep.
And the ruling by Honorable His Worship Omar Jabang on the Yusuf Asedi case, IGP versus Yusuf Asedi, should be exhibit 223A.
Yeah.
And his dismissal letter of 3rd May 2016 should be exhibit 223B. And his reinstatement letter, that is the rescission of the decision, should be dated 5 May 2016, should be 223C.
Fine. Thank you very much. All 4 requests, Council are granted.
Thank you very much, Mr.
We will, the Committee on Reparations is meeting in an emergency session upstairs right after this meeting, and tomorrow we will resume our meeting tomorrow morning sharp at 10 o'clock. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, witnesses, very much.